"Don't talk," a homeless single dad warned a cop before the attack. A broken bar. What happened next shocked everyone. The cold night air clung to his jacket like a second skin. Marcus tugged the thin zipper higher, though it did little against the creeping chill. His daughter stirred in his lap, her tiny head nestled against his chest. He shifted her carefully, tucking her closer, as though his embrace alone might shield her from the world. The park bench beneath them was hard and unforgiving, its paint peeling, its iron frame groaning with every movement. He hated that she had to sleep here, beneath the flickering streetlight that buzzed like an insect. Once, years ago, Marcus had sworn to his wife that their little girl would always know safety, warmth, and home. But now, home was a dream too far. He had been a mechanic on Sia, a good one. He could coax life back into engines others had given up on. There had been grease under his nails, music on the radio, and a smile across his face more days than not. His wife, Emily, would bring their daughter into the shop sometimes, sitting her on the counter while Marcus worked. Those were good days, simple days. But cancer had no respect for good people or good intentions. When Emily passed, Marcus tried to hold everything together, but grief was a heavy load. Bills piled up: medical bills, rent, debts. The shop let him go when his grief slowed him down. Eventually, the apartment was gone too. He and his daughter, Lily, became faces in the crowd no one noticed. That was what stung most, and not the hunger, not the cold, not even the shame. It was the invisibility. To walk among hundreds of people every day and still feel unseen, as if he and Lily were already ghosts. But tonight, something shifted. It was nearly midnight when Marcus noticed them. 3 men loitered at the corner of the dark street. They weren't like the other restless wanderers he sometimes saw. These men moved with intent, their bodies taut with a confidence born from violence. One leaned against the brick wall, lighting a cigarette. Another paced like a predator. The third kept his hands in his jacket pocket, his eyes fixed on the empty street. Marcus's gut tightened. He had seen this before, on rough nights when men had cornered him in alleys, demanding the few coins he had managed to collect. Trouble wasn't just walking by tonight. Trouble was waiting. Then he spotted the officer, a young cop, alone, walking his routine patrol. He looked tired, maybe even bored, unaware of the trap just a few feet ahead. His hand rested lazily near his holster, but his gaze drifted to the storefronts, the empty windows. Marcus's heart raced. He looked down at Lily, sleeping softly against his chest. Every instinct screamed to stay still, to protect his daughter first. But another instinct, a deeper, older own, rose louder. He had promised Emily he would raise their girl to live in a world worth believing in, and that meant sometimes standing up when no one else would. He shifted Lily gently off his lap, laying her on the bench. She stirred but didn't wake. He brushed her hair from her face, whispered, "Stay here, baby. Don't move. Daddy will be right back." She sighed and turned, still dreaming. Marcus stood, his knees stiff from hours on the bench. He walked toward the officer, every step heavy with fear. As their paths crossed, Marcus leaned close and whispered urgently, "Don't talk." The cop frowned, confused, his mouth opening to ask a question. But before he could, the men lunged. One swung a bottle, its glass catching the streetlight as it hurtled downward. Another reached into his jacket, pulling something metallic. The third shoved the officer back. Marcus didn't think. He moved. With a shout, he barreled forward, shoving the officer hard out of the way. The bottle smashed against his shoulder, glass shattering, pain searing through his arm. He staggered but didn't stop. He grabbed the arm holding the weapon, twisting it until the man yelped and dropped it. The officer, jolted into action, rolled to his feet, hand flying to his holster. His gun came up, steady now, his voice commanding. Police. Down on the ground, the attackers froze, then scattered. Sirens wailed in the distance as someone had called for backup. Within minutes, flashing lights flooded the street. The men were caught, cuffed, shoved into the back of squad cars. But Marcus barely saw it. He collapsed on the sidewalk, clutching his bleeding arm. His world narrowed to the sound of his daughter's footsteps, tiny and frantic, pounding against the pavement. "Daddy!" Lily's cry pierced the night. She threw herself onto him, her small arms wrapping around his neck. He winced but pulled her close with his good arm, pressing his face into her hair. The officer knelt beside them, his eyes wide with shock. "You broken bar, you saved my life." His voice was barely a whisper. Marcus shook his head, grimacing through the pain. "Did what I had to. My girl a broken bar." He glanced down at Lily, clutching him tightly. "She needs a world where cops come home safe." "Couldn't just watch." The officer said nothing for a long time. He just stared at Marcus, the homeless man he might have walked past 100 times without seeing. A man who had nothing, yet gave everything. The story spread fast. By morning, local news stations carried the headline, "Homeless Father Saves Police Officer from Late-Night Ambush." Videos from bystanders went viral. The city, so often indifferent to the forgotten, suddenly knew Marcus's name. The police department honored him publicly, standing him at the podium not as a homeless man, not as a charity kazi but as a hero. Cameras flashed as Lily clutched his hand, blinking at the crowd. Donations poured in. Strangers across the city and even across the country sent money, clothes, toys for Lily. Businesses offered Marcus work. A shelter opened its doors, promising him and his daughter a room with heat, a bed, and safety. But the most powerful moment came days later, when the young officer knocked on the shelter's door. Marcus opened it cautiously, Lily peeking from behind his legs. The officer stood there, holding 2 bags. One was filled with clothes and toys for Lily. The other, thick with paperwork, was for Marcus. "I pulled some strings," the officer said with a smile. "There's a job waiting for you at the precinct garage. Steady hours, benefits, a fresh start." Marcus's throat tightened. He tried to speak but words caught in his chest. "You told me not to talk," the officer added, his eyes softening. "But now the whole city is talking a broken bar about you." Lily tugged at Marcus's sleeve. "Daddy, we have a home now." Marcus dropped to his knees, pulling her close. Tears blurred his vision as he whispered, voice breaking, "Yeah, baby, we do." That night, for the first time in months, Marcus tucked his daughter into a real bed. He stood by her side until her breathing slowed, until the peace of sleep took her. Then he sat on the edge of the mattress, burying his face in his hands. He had fought because he couldn't do nothing. He had stepped into danger with no thought of reward, only the instinct to protect. And in return, the world is so cold, so indifferent, had given him back hope. Marcus realized something then. Heroism wasn't about uniforms, medals, or recognition. It was about love, about sacrifice, about giving when you had nothing left to give. And sometimes, the very people the world overlooked were the ones holding it together.